Here we go with yet another pre-recorded extravaganza.
Yes, due to situations on the ground, we have to pre-record
Oh
today.
dear.
It's weird
So
doing this in the daytime.
it is weird doing it in the daytime. It's weird doing it sober. No,
We
not weird.
usually are completely trashed by now by the
No,
end
but
of the
I'm
introduction.
I'm usually enjoying a beer during the recording. But if I did that now, I'd have to go take a nap after the show.
Yes,
Um, but actually, I'm gonna go take a nap after the show anyway. So, you know,
you can take a nap now if you want to. I can
okay.
entertain people with a
I'm
song or something.
well. I don't think you'd have to entertain them with the song. I'm sure you'll have plenty to say about this movie.
I have a couple of things to say.
I'm sure you do, but and I'm nervous. I've been nervous all day to have this conversation with you. But before Russia invades the Ukraine and things get ugly, um,
Well, they kind of already did that, I think.
I mean, on metaphorically on the
Yes,
show.
I see it for
Yeah,
us. Yeah,
yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Stress levels are high, lots of things happening. Amelia's show is in tech right now, as I've said before, so
So
everything's a little crazy right now. I'm glad to have a chance to do this because tonight got crazy.
tonight,
But things are fine. How are you?
uh, I'm good.
I saw
Um,
that the bottling situation has now become a very serious deal.
Yes, I sent you that photograph of somebody else bottling our booze. I am so happy
That
that
must have made you really happy.
it's really interesting to see, somebody else is doing it. I'm not having to blend and bottle and measure and do all that work. Although I got to tell you, there's something hard about giving it up. It's like sending your kid off to into kindergarten to be cared for by somebody else. Um, and they started bottling yesterday. They will finish tomorrow morning.
Right.
I will show up with a pickup truck and pick up over 60 cases of our booze. And these are sample bottles. These are giveaways um, for people to
For our listeners?
well, no, for our listeners, if they are influencers,
Okay, I see.
these are sample bottles to give away to influencers and food critics and restaurants and distributors and people who might be interested in carrying it.
I'm a food critic.
Yeah, um, and I'll bring you some the next time I see you. Um,
Excellent.
I, actually, the next time I see you might be in May because I'm going to force you to come out here for some of the launch events
I
when we
have to see that happen.
Um, you been watching? Have you had time to watch anything interesting or anything not
Let me
interesting?
check my notes on that. Let me see.
I
Interesting.
mean, other than this movie,
Let
no,
me
we're not
see. Let
talking
me
about this
see.
movie.
Yeah,
Oh
I've
boy.
seen some interesting stuff. I saw an Elvis Presley movie called Clambake, which I think that we should cover. I think we should do a run of Presley movies.
Okay, I'm up for
Um,
that.
Clambake is the most ridiculous movie I've ever seen, and I'd like to share that with people.
All
Um,
right, I'm up for that.
yeah, that was the big excitement. That was the big excitement in terms of viewing. How about yourself?
No, same old British detective
Yeah.
stuff. You know me and
Yes.
my British detectives. Well,
It's the all the detectives that wear sweaters.
all the yeah in Scotland and Wales and Northumbria.
And
But boy,
sometimes in outside of Norway or something like that too.
yeah. But I tell you, watching this show Shetland, boy, does that make me want to go to the Shetland Island. It just
You've said this on the show before. It must be really hitting a chord with you.
it looks so beautiful. And also, I was having a really interesting discussion with my son today, and he was talking about reading that he's been doing on, I don't know what you call it, but sociology and the history of the development of human societies and stuff. And
Right.
talking about how the way we live now is really anathema to the way our brains work, that we're sort of meant to live in communities where you could walk to everything that you need. You could walk in the course of an hour, you could walk to everything that you need,
Brooklyn,
and look
baby.
what?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, exactly. Or,
Yeah.
and so looking at this place, Shetland, and realizing they live on an island. Everybody knows everybody, but you can walk to the pub, you can if you wanna be alone, you're alone in your place, but if you didn't wanna be alone, you don't even have to call a friend, you can walk to the pub, and there are gonna be people there who you know and can spend time with. Um
Yes.
and he said something interesting. He said it's why for many people, their memory of college is their happiest memory because it's the last time for many people that they lived in that kind of situation. You living in Brooklyn still live in that situation.
Yes.
Uh,
Are you
me
suggesting that I'm immature? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that living in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
you found a way to make that continue. I live in Irvine. I might as well be on the International Space Station. I can't get from where I am to
Yeah.
anything of use to me in any way.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that would kind of be hard for me after living like this for so long, where I can really walk to whatever I need,
Yeah, if you
including
lived in
friends
Irvine,
and whatever. It's pretty great. I like
yeah,
that about New York. I always have. I know you do too. So
yeah. If you lived in Irvine, you would kill yourself and then me.
no, I would not do any killing. I don't say that. I never have. Won't do that.
Okay. Um,
I would damage your knees though, so you wouldn't be able to walk anymore.
okay. All right. That's
I
fair.
learned that from the Terminator.
Yeah,
This is a movie show, so
yeah. As my friend Jamie would say, tough but fair.
tough but fair.
Tough but fair.
How else are you is anyone going to trust what I say if I'm not equal parts tough but fair?
Well, let's hope that as we dive into the discussion of today's film, you can live up to that credo.
I work hard at this.
Okay.
This is my therapy, and I work hard at controlling my rage impulses and my anger
So
flare-ups and my
I'm
white
so scared
white
to discuss this
flare-outs.
movie.
So
Okay.
this has been a good test. So I thank you.
Okay. So I guess we might as well dive in and let my humiliation begin.
No, sir.
Because the challenge for me is going to be to continue to be honest uh, in the face of the onslaught, the panzer divisions of criticism that I feel are headed
You need
slowly
not
my
you
way.
need not fear any kind of incursion, at all.
Okay,
This is going to be a mixed time that you're gonna have, but,
okay.
uh, overall warm. So, not,
Oh, oh, I I can breathe. I can breathe again.
overall a warm feeling. So you don't have to be afraid. I think that you will be afraid at the end of this. I'm doing some math, little looking and searching, and I think by at the end of this month will be a moment of
Yeah, of fear. Yeah. Well, I planned the order of these films carefully
yes.
so that
Your
the
reckoning
kind
is coming, but I don't
yeah,
think it's happening today.
because, I think I structured it, I tried to structure this month the way you would structure a screenplay, right? We have Notting Hill, the inciting incident, right? Then we go to, How to Steal a Million, which I think is going to be just a romp. The plot will really get going. I think we'll enjoy each other's company.
And is it not Audrey Hepburn?
It's Audrey Hepburn and Peter O'Toole.
Come
What's
on.
to say? Right. And then a little suspense might creep in around the time of Pillow Talk, although we may see eye to eye. But then the final act is going to be a conflagration.
Well, like
Uh,
any great innovative, play, it's going to challenge its audience and it's going to leave us feeling, in new territory, which is who knows, good or bad. We don't
yeah,
really know.
and we'll know each other better at
We
the end of this
will.
month.
We will.
So today's movie, 1999's Notting Hill, starring I Had a Stroke, starring Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I had a
Those are the people
momentary.
in the movie, if that's what you're trying to say.
Well, I looked down at my notes and I saw Pretty Woman, and I was about then I almost said starring Pretty Woman.
And you were just like, "Pretty
Starring
woman, starring
starring
pretty,
a pretty
pretty."
woman. A pretty woman starred in this
Yes.
movie. I do have to tell you, before we start talking about the movie, that in 1991, and I think it was I was doing a play in New York City in a toilet on Lower Death Street. Um, and I credit John Guare with that phrase, for the kinds of theaters we've all done plays in New York.
Yes.
And it was an evening of one acts, and I played in the couple that I was in. I played opposite Lisa Roberts, Julia's older sister. And opening night, we're having the party on the stage at the theater. Everybody's there in the theater, mingling about on the stage for the opening night party. And there's a little tap on my shoulder, and I turn around, and there's Julia Roberts. And she says, "Hi, excuse me, I'm Julia Roberts." And and it was all I could do to not just say, "Duh,"
Mhm.
because I think she had just been on the cover of GQ magazine as the first woman ever to be on the cover of GQ. Until then, it was always men, and then she was, her star had just exploded.
And you're nothing if not known as a GQ fan, so
Uh,
obviously it would be the form.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just to give an idea of how huge she was at the time. So, I mean, she was at the time
She was the biggest
kind of,
star in the world.
yeah, who this woman is in this movie.
Yeah.
And yet she felt she was very quiet and soft spoken, and introduced herself to me as if I might not know. She was, "Hi, I'm Julia Roberts. I'm Lisa's older sister. I mean, I'm Lisa's younger sister." I was like, "Hi, nice to meet. Oh, hi,
Yes.
nice to meet
Oh,
you."
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Could you get out of here? You're bothering me.
yeah. This
Like,
is a
this
this is
is
a
a
private
private place.
party.
I don't know what you're.
Yeah,
Excuse me,
yeah,
Julia.
yeah. Private party.
Pardon me. Back off a little bit. A little close. Don't
Yeah,
touch me. You're tapping me on the shoulder. Don't you
calm
just give
down.
me some space.
I know it's hard to, I know
Don't
I'm hard to resist,
don't tell
but
me how to do my job, Julia. I know what's going on.
I just think that that was so nice that she was so unassuming at the time.
Well, I've never heard anything but nice things about her. She doesn't have a reputation. I've never heard anybody say anything negative.
No, me neither.
She seems like a very nice person, and
Yeah,
I
private. She seems kind of private.
I would. I'm sure.
Tried to live a normal life,
Hmm.
for hard to do for somebody with that level of
Yeah, and
fame,
I've
I would
always
imagine.
thought that she was a better actor than maybe people give her credit for now.
Okay, well, great. We're gonna get into this then.
Uh,
Do you wanna tell people about a little bit about what this movie's about?
well, sure. Yeah, this
'Cause I
movie.
can't. I'll just start crying again, so,
Okay, okay.
it'll be embarrassing.
This movie is about an ordinary guy. We'll get into this. I won't comment on the movie until later.
Okay.
It's about an ordinary guy, um, kind of a guy who's been unlucky in love, who lives in a kind of bohemian part of London, and he runs a travel bookstore that is not doing very good business, and he lives with a rather crazy, artistic, club going Welshman who is, your classic kind of like roommate from hell, but who you love anyway.
Right. And this movie might take place in your neighborhood if it was in New York.
Absolutely. It feels very much actually like kind of a New York movie in a lot of ways.
Right.
And he is working at his bookstore one day, and in walks the biggest movie star in the world, played by Julia Roberts. Her name in the movie is that's where I'm going to get lost
And
because I'm
Emma Stone.
Right,
No, it's not. It's
not
not
Emma
Emma
Stone,
Stone.
it's
Yeah.
Anna Scott, and, she's playing someone, like Matthew said, very much like herself. She's making a movie in London, has just happened to be interested in coming into this bookstore, as you do. And they have a kind of a meet cute moment where they can't really, you know, talk to each other like normal people because it's an awkward situation, but they depart. She departs. And later, they happen to run into each other again, and he spills his orange juice all over her, and it's a big disaster and a big mess. And she's very kind of upset about it. And he's trying to make amends and says, "Why don't you come over to my apartment and clean up, but use a phone, whatever you need to do? I'm literally across the street." So she kind of hesitantly agrees to go over. He recognizes her, but he's not, as he said in the opening narration, which is always a good idea to explain the movie to me before it starts. Because there was just so much vital information that I got out of it that I couldn't have seen. But um, he describes himself as somebody who doesn't really know. He knows who she is. He's admired her as this beautiful woman in pictures and stuff, but he doesn't really have an investment in being a fan of hers or anything like that.
He's not really into the kinds of movies she does. We get the
Or any
feeling.
movies, really. He doesn't seem to be
Right.
interested in pop culture of any kind. He's more
Right.
bookish.
Yeah.
And so that you know, they have a little chemistry. She agrees to go over, cleans up, they have some chemistry, and then cute romantic things ensue. Phone
Right.
number, oh, I lost the phone number, she's been waiting for a couple days. My stupid roommate, he did this, he botched this, got the name wrong. I get in there, he's got to pose as a reporter accidentally. So there's a little kind of like low-key Pink Panther stuff going on where he's got to like pretend to be people that he's not in order to be near her, because she can't let this be out that, you know,
That
maybe she's
she's
falling for.
seeing a commoner. Yeah.
So it's this, you know, this classic kind of, I would say, very Shakespearean minded, consciously Shakespearean comedy about a common man and a high-bred woman, and the craziness that's it ensues when their lives try to get together.
Okay.
Is that a
Great.
fair
I
assessment?
think that's a very fair assessment.
Um, so my questions are, I'll start off by going, what's your history with this movie, other than having met Julia Louis Dreyfus, and I don't know what that has to do with anything.
Yes. And General Grant. I never
Uh,
met General Grant.
so you met Julia Roberts, but other than that, did you see this movie when it came out?
I didn't see it when it came out. It came out in 1999, and I was very busy then. At night, I was in a show that ran for a long. So I don't believe I saw this. Well, I suppose I could have gone to a matinee, but I had a young child and was, as you did in the day, going to my voiceover auditions during the day and going to do my show at night. And I didn't see a lot of movies at that time. So I believe I saw this when it came out on what was that stuff called? Videotape. It
Hmm.
came out on at
Yeah,
a store called Blockbuster, I
yeah.
think. I think that's when I saw it, and I remember liking it. I remember enjoying it. Um, Revisiting it to me has been actually a lot of fun because, well, two reasons. One, I'm a sap. I cry at Hallmark commercials. I cry at How I Met Your Mother. There's something about, just fun, heartfelt, sappy love stories that just get me. And my kids know this. They will be watching something and they'll look over at me. They're like going, "Oh, Dad's going to start crying now," and I just do. I don't exactly know why. Um,
Love stories
Love stories.
primarily. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah, love stories just they get me. Um,
even ones that aren't sad.
yeah. Yeah. Actually, particularly often when they're happy, I will lose it. Um, uh, but also revisiting it and looking at it, trying to look at it critically because I wanted to step back and say, okay, forget your feelings about the genre and your love of this kind of story. Did they do something more interesting than just that with this movie? And I think in some ways they did, which we can get into when we start talking about the characters. Um, but before I start defending it, I'd I I guess which way should we go? Like I can make a case for this movie. I think.
Well, honestly, I can too. I think the easiest thing for me is just to get off my chest my main problem and
Yeah.
central issue,
Okay. Which is I'm
which is
curious.
Hugh Grant.
You don't like Mr. Grant.
I like I can't say that. I like his work in certain things. I
Okay.
don't fall for him as a romantic lead. I
Okay.
don't find him sympathetic enough.
Uh-huh.
A person, for whatever reason, uh, to watch be sad about his sad life before this movie started, and it got me off to a wrong foot with the guy. I had a problem. The only problem I have with the movie really is that it's happening to a guy that I don't really think deserves it.
No.
Because I think they're only saying the only thing about him that, I mean, he's a nice guy, I guess, but we don't really get to know how deep that goes necessarily because he's very guarded and he's got that very British you know, kind of guarded emotionality to him. Here's the thing I felt. I wanted him to have a life that he liked somewhere. The bookstore didn't make him happy. He
Right.
seemed to be slumming it in Notting Hill was his attitude. Like he was like, "Oh, look at these poor artist craftsmen who I live by." I'm like, "You don't have any money either, guy. So just start, you're actually here." And I felt like he just seemed to be a little above all of it in a way that was not endearing to me and didn't his love of travel wasn't expressed in anything other than him owning a bookstore. So he had no soul. All he was a sad guy who was divorced and now thought he wasn't going to have love again, but that wasn't enough for me to care whether he did.
Ah,
Do you see my
interesting.
point at all?
I do.
But
I
I think
do.
it's possible to watch this movie and let yourself just be just him be a stand-in for you or oneself. And if you like that kind of movie, then you don't really need a lot of character from that character. You just need to insert yourself there, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe he works for people in that way, like he's a blank enough canvas there to just
Mhm.
pretend you're him. I don't know, but he doesn't. He's not sympathetic.
Well, that's really interesting what you just said because I hadn't thought of that, and I think there's two things going on there for me. One is yes, I totally agree because and I think in some ways I don't know if this was purposeful on the point of view of the on the part of the filmmakers, but it is told from his point of view. So it's supposed to be happening to us from his perspective, not hers, right? So yeah, I do step into his shoes and I'm like, "Oh, I'm the nice, unsuccessful, lonely guy to whom this could happen." Um uh
Which to me makes it kind of the sappiest kind of wish fulfillment nonsense that men romance like it's like what they consider like I know there's great gold in romance novels, but there's
right.
also a lot of kind of crappy literature there.
Yeah.
For some people, a great romance novel, something they seek out and they really it means something to them. Other people just want the experience of like just give me the IV drip of romance. I don't really care like
Right.
how it's meted out. And I did, for me to want to see somebody with her, I felt like his lack of soul represented trouble on the rocks for them later on. Like I
Mm.
did, if he had something that he really, even if he was still sad and lonely, but he was like passionate about what he loved, even though it wasn't successful. Um, I like he's kind of offhand about his books. He's kind of like flippant about describing his books to people. He's
Right, but I felt, for me, I felt like he had I felt like this was as you say, a nice guy who was in this place of, that he had already lost at the game of life and love. And where it comes home for me is that he is coasting through life with this not very good bookstore, but I feel like he's lost faith in himself and in a future because of his wife having left him. And they don't hammer home, but when he finally says to her in the scene where she comes back and he turns her down and says, I I don't think I could survive if what you're offering me doesn't work. I couldn't survive. To me said, here's a guy who's, given up
yeah,
in a lot of
I
ways.
agree. I agree, but you're asking me to really be happy that they get married at the end of this movie. Spoiler alert. And I
Well, don't watch or listen to our show
so
if
my
you
point
don't
my
want
point being,
spoilers.
like, I agree with you 100%. That doesn't make up for the fact that those things make me anxious for their future, because I find her a much more, she's got problems. She's a little, fiery, and she's a little
Sh
selfish, a
and
little
she's a
narcissistic.
horrible person a lot of
She
times
treats
in
him
this
pretty
movie.
badly. Um, and I think we can all relate to being in relationships, or falling for people like that, or getting treated like that. So, and I think they capture that vibe pretty well, in the movie. All, I don't want to harbor too much grief on it, because it's a Hugh Grant thing. I really feel like the movie for me would have kicked into a completely higher gear if either Dylan Moran or Rice Ifans had been that character instead.
Gotcha,
And
okay.
if there was, see, this is like, to me, Hugh Grant's playing John Cleese. He's a John Cleese type Englishman, and this movie needed a Michael Palin. Both can
Gotcha,
be sad, but I don't care if John Cleese gets married at the end of the movie, and I
okay,
and I didn't really hear.
okay. I'm just so happy to hear you call that actor Rice Ifans because I was gonna call him Reese Ifans. I had
Maybe it
no
is
idea.
Siphons. I
I
it's a Welsh name that we're mangling, the both of us here.
maybe Peter Stray will
Peter,
give us a call and let us know how to
I hope
pronounce
that
that
he
name.
will scold us. We really don't know how to pronounce. He's a
He'll
great
say
actor.
he'll say that's actually pronounced Scott Murgatroyd.
Yes, those do know how to read.
Yeah,
So,
because that's
I was thinking, like, I don't know. There's other actors I feel like could have really won me over to want to see how he was going to handle this, and
right.
I just felt like Hugh Grant was just going to be kind of a repressed, British style repressed guy, and
How about Greg Kinnear?
he's the American Hugh Grant, isn't he?
Okay, how about Rory Kinnear?
We're
You know Rory Kinnear?
No, I don't.
He's a
Wait.
Brit.
I was thinking of somebody, another Rory. I was thinking of Rory Culkin.
Oh, okay. No, Rory Kinnear, a British actor, um, who would have fit right in with the group of friends in this movie. Um, all right. Well, okay. I can hear what you're saying and take it in and not feel too ashamed of myself.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's my big thing. I mean, okay. I feel like there could have
Oh,
been 30 minutes less montage, and then, and less jukebox hits from the Motown era, which I don't understand. I don't, what is Bill Withers singing about here? Why are we watching? Why am I listening to Bill Withers one of the greatest artists of the musical recordings of the 20th century, and watching Hugh Grant be sad in a nice shirt. Like, I didn't understand this world,
Okay.
but there are wonderful things about the movie.
All right.
And you know, if it had been Rysel Ifen in the part, playing both parts, I would have liked probably enjoyed it more.
Okay. See, I was a little bit afraid coming into this conversation because you like movies. I thought you were going to say something like, I like Kandinsky and Paul Klee and Matisse, and you, Matthew, like paintings of a bowl of fruit.
You like dogs playing poker.
Yeah.
Um, there's, you know, look, this is a genre movie. You know, genre movies are they're a special breed. It's not an art movie, and I think I would have. I would have been in love with this movie if it had been a little bit more of an art movie. I like movies like this. I just feel that the
Yeah.
rom-com, it becomes and let's use the word rom-com as the bad version of romantic comedy. So
Yes.
rom-com to me is a kind of a emotional, just push buttons, put a song in, make you cry, make a
Oh, yeah,
montage,
and
all
they
that.
are clearly they set out to make a hit.
Well, yeah, and they do it by relying on a lot of sappy tropes rather than anything really inject it with something brand new. So in that way, it's a tried and true genre movie. It's hitting all the buttons. The movie starts with a montage of her with music. I mean, it starts that way. And I felt like there, for a 2-hour movie where I'm feeling like I don't know enough about the main character to know whether I want him to succeed at his quest or not,
Right.
can we have some more, like, less montage to just tell me I'm supposed to like him, and more writing and more character there? That was so I think, like, that's where it's not Philadelphia Story. It's like it
Right.
relies on things as crutches a lot. And
Right.
that being said, though, it's a really beautifully shot movie, and it's a thoughtfully designed movie, and you know, I think that the filmmakers are really interested in in honoring this Shakespearean tradition with it. Did you feel that from it? I mean, I think the writer was clearly trying to kind of emulate uh,
Yeah.
classic Shakespearean comedy.
Yeah, and if we take so let's take as a premise that they set out to just, as you say, punch the buttons and make a hit, right? There's a song by, I believe it's Marianas Trench, called Pop Music 101, which is a pop, like the worst kind of pop song. But the joke of the song, what I love about it is the lyrics are actually like, here's how you write a pop song. And it's like the music version of our poster, Things in
Yeah,
Silverado.
yeah,
They write this song that is, here's all the things that go into it. Here's the formula for a pop song. And
right,
it's this song that gets into your head and you can't stop singing it because it hits all the buttons.
right.
And
Yeah,
so if we say that's what these guys set out to make and they did it, what I think would be fun to do is say, okay, that's the extent of what they were trying to do. But let's look at it for a moment and see, where did they do something that gave it any more depth than that, or where did it really work even on that level? And there's a couple of things that I loved. Is that I loved that their meet cute at the beginning, they sort of do a fake with it, because their first meeting isn't really a meet cute. It's just a meet, in the store. And you're waiting for it to be the meet cute. And then it's not. And she's gone. And it's like, oh, well, what's going to bring them? And then he goes out for the orange juice, walks around the corner, slams into her, and then they give us the meat. And I liked that they said, let's put some more effort into it than
yeah,
just, because I think that a lesser writer, a less skillful writer, would have her come running into the store because there was a mob of paparazzi after her. And
Yeah.
that's how it would begin.
Yeah.
But it begins with her coming in there for a reason of her own. And being, aside from being Emma Scott or Anna Scott, standing in for Julia Roberts, the biggest star of the day, stunning and gorgeous and inaccessible, actually is not all that nice at the beginning. Like, what's the deal with her? There's like this assumption on her part that, of course, who I am, and of course this would be uncomfortable, and she comes off as really unlikable initially. And I liked that.
Yeah, I thought that was smart writing and brave of her to, to lean into that part of the character, because, I could see another star wanting to be more liked, worrying about being more liked in this
Yeah.
than she kind of is. So they really pushed that.
Yeah.
You know,
Another place where I thought they had a really wonderful touch is after they have split up in the middle of the movie, and his friends are trying to set him up with everybody to console him. And we have the classic date after date after date with ridiculously horrible women. It then ends with a date with Emily Mortimer, and she's perfect, and
well,
she's
she's great. I mean, yeah, she's clearly like the person best matched for him, and she seems like a dream herself in a lot
yeah,
of ways.
and she's even called in the credits perfect woman. I
Yeah,
mean, she's just, and a woman who any other guy in the audience would be going, dude,
yeah,
what is wrong with you?
yeah.
And you'd have a better life with her, probably.
Well, yeah, I mean that was smart to put that in. I'm be really curious to see how this movie plays for I saw this movie alone, which is a strange thing for me to admit and to have happened. To see this movie by myself during the daytime was a strange
Funny, that's how I
thing.
watched it. And I
And,
will wager you, we're both sitting alone on our couches during the day watching this movie in separate places. We're alone. I will wager you that in the I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her scene, I will bet you money that only one of us was crying, and it wasn't you.
I'm not going to take the bet. I'm not going. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's correct. I wasn't crying at that. That did not. I did. This movie didn't move me.
Okay.
I didn't get moved by it. I didn't get my heartstrings weren't tugged. It didn't have that impact on me. I admired things about how it was made. Some things made me laugh, and I was charmed by some stuff, but I wasn't moved.
Were you moved by the relationship between Max and Bella?
Okay, I will cop to being somewhat affected by it. I don't. I've when I have a little bit of an issue with what I would call maybe a little twee writing. The writing is good, but it's a little cute. It's a little bit polished. It's a little bit, let's just move it along and keep it light. And then sometimes I'll feel a writer uses something like, and they've just had a horrible accident and they're in a wheelchair as a device for me to feel things that they haven't earned in the writing. They've just kind of put there for me as a thing where, like, well, you have to feel something now. So I felt a little manipulated by
But
it, but
don't you think what they were going for was not the sympathy for her for being in a wheelchair, but the what it said about her husband's
what I'm
character?
saying is
And
that it was a bit of a over the head choice of
okay.
to do that kind of thing, and as a stand-in, again, for all the conversations or nice moments between human beings that we could have had if we weren't listening to Muddy Waters sing a song about something.
Okay. Whoa, ow. Okay.
No, that's a problem I have with the genre, though. So, like, that's
Oh, okay.
literally a little bit where I can't. I start checking my watch because if you don't like that song or you're not into that artist or that recording of that song, you got 3 minutes where you're like, this movie is not. It's just not going to work for me.
Okay. All right. I'll take that.
Um,
Uh, a couple of things I want to ask about. Um, what about the story that she tells to win the brownie, where she tries to win the brownie? Do you think that story is the saddest or not?
I categorically don't feel it's the saddest, but I feel it was nonetheless uh nonetheless she delivered that in a way that made me feel she deserved being heard. You know, she made a case for somebody going, oh, I actually that sounds pretty shitty. Like that doesn't sound great.
Your life isn't perfect. You're a
It's
movie
not
star and
perfect.
your life isn't perfect.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah. I don't think it was the saddest either, but I did like that she brought that moment of honesty to that group of people.
yeah. I think to talk about Julia Roberts for a second, eh, I don't know if I ever gave her a lot of credit when she was working all the time and then the biggest star. I didn't have an issue with it, but a lot of movies of hers I didn't go to because they were maybe rom-coms or I didn't
Right.
see that particular kind of movie. It wasn't until Amelia actually told me she was a fan, that she thought she was quite a good actor, that I started paying attention because Amelia's like a real weather vane for me of like if someone's being truthful or good to really watch them.
Yeah.
So I've seen her since hearing that, and I have to admit she's really, really invested and she's really present emotionally. And she's also, I think, a perfect choice for this movie because she has so much bottled up emotion all the time. Like her thing, her trademark seems to be like, I'm not gonna tell you all this stuff that's going on in me right now
Right.
because I'm shy or I don't want to or it's not the right time, but it's there and it's really there. Like she sells that story and it's personal. And I thought that was that it I really can't think of another actor that could have done that and been charming and made me go like, well, you should deserve a bite of the brownie anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What about in terms of the filmmaking? What were there moments that stand out to you in a positive way
Oh
in
yeah. I mean, like I said, I think the movie's really well shot and it's really well designed. These are really great, technicians and artists working behind the camera. I think, I mean, Michael Coulter was a cinematographer and he did things like, Sense and Sensibility and and he did Love Actually and a lot of things. He did Mansfield Park, a lot of really different kinds of films. The production designer also is big deal. I'm looking up his name right now because I didn't write him down. Production designer Stuart Craig, who did, The English Patient and Harry Potter movies and stuff. He's a big deal. So it's not just a pedigree thing. There were touches in this movie that I was really struck by. For
well, and
instance,
it was a mammoth undertaking making this movie. To shoot this movie on location where they shot it
yeah,
was
yeah,
they had to write to something like 2,000 people to get permission to shoot in that neighborhood, the
um,
way they shot, and they gave donations to over 200 charities.
yeah. I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. Um, and when
And it pays off because the neighborhood becomes a character in the movie.
Well, it does, but I mean, I'm even talking about. I mean, yes, that's all true. But when I noticed, for instance, like, oh, there's some stuff going on, camera-wise, storytelling-wise, that I appreciated was like in the bookstore when
Mhm.
she comes in the first time. You don't really see her face. You just kind of see her. She's a bit out of focus, and she comes in and she stands half behind a bookshelf, so you don't really know if it's her or not. He looks, and his POV, they throw in a slightly longer lens, and the only book that you see is a stack of books called Voyage in front of her that's blocking her.
Ah,
The title,
I
and they're
didn't know
big. The
that.
titles of the book are like right in your face, and I was like, oh, okay. So this they're telling us subliminally. This is the entrance to the voyage that he's taking.
Oh,
And
great.
sure, it's a travel bookstore, but it wasn't a book on Spain or anything else.
Right.
It said voyage on it. And then when she makes her exit, right? And you think, oh, this isn't the meet cute, like you say. They button it by she leaves, and you see the door sign that usually would say closed because the store's open,
Right.
so the front would say open. We see closed, but they obviously didn't want to do that. It says back in
Back
five
in 5
minutes.
minutes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I was like, they know what they're doing. Like they're really the whole team is making this movie together, and there's a lot of really wonderful things like that in the movie. I thought so.
Well, because of that, I wanna ask you a question because I couldn't figure this out completely, but because everything like that was so intentional, what is up with the giant geisha poster that is featured over and over again in his apartment? Is it showing, like, some fantasy ideal of femininity versus this fiery, you know, fiery, hard to handle, not subservient woman that he ends up falling in love with? Is it a
Um,
juxtaposition of the because she's the opposite of a geisha, right?
oh,
Geisha
sure.
is there to serve your needs and be unnoticeable and do whatever you need them to do all the time, right? And she's not that.
No. Right. That's a really interesting point. I noted that poster and I was wondering myself what the choice was behind it. It's in a couple of shots, mostly of his roommate is where it shows up.
Yeah,
And
but
I
it's
mean,
right
for
there
me,
at the
the way I
entrance to
took
the
it, sorry.
it's right there at the entrance to the apartment,
Yeah.
and there's so many scenes that take place
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. I'm sure, you're right that it has something to do with, female power or how men view women or something like that. To me, I always look at the set dressing as some kind of tell for the character's psychology of the people that live there. And
Right,
so I guess I related it to, the inner fantasy life that he has about how exciting, his life could be, how crazy and wonderful his life could be in his imagination, but that he never really does it because he runs a bookstore. And
right.
so the fact that he has snorkel gear that he doesn't use, the fact that that he's got there's these little tells that he's got an exciting inner life. And so and you don't know if that's his poster or his roommate's poster,
Right,
but either way, it's in their home.
yeah.
And so yeah, but I thought I was really struck by that too.
Um, what about in talking about this cinematography, there's one sequence that I love and that I use in class, and, I've used it in class for a long time, but n this time through, I loved it even more because I noticed something else about it. It's the shot of the way they shoot the scene where he is telling them that he turned her down. But then I noticed this time through that right before that scene, when he turns her down, they're interrupted, and when he comes back, he says, "I'm sorry about that," and she says, "That's okay. There's always a pause while the jury considers its verdict." And then we cut to the scene that's shot like a courtroom scene where he is
Yeah.
presenting his case of why
And they're
he
all
broke up with her.
objectifying him and staring at him.
And they're the jury.
Yeah.
And it's shot like a courtroom scene
Mhm.
with him making his case and the shots of the jury, and then the shots from behind the jury, the camera panning behind the jury,
Yeah.
of the lawyer as the lawyer's making his closing statement.
It's really good. That's a yeah, good notice on your part. I love that. Yeah. It's really well made, I mean, it really is. And it still has these moments where I wish I think it could have been smarter. I feel like it could have been, a little bit, edgier. He could have been the main character could have been a little bit more interesting to me, and I just would have liked it that much more, and it would have had all this stuff too. Um, but You know, they didn't let it bog them down. There was things that I laughed out loud at things. I was surprised.
I think I know one line that you laughed out loud
Which one?
at the dinner when they pass the plate to one of his dates and they say, I can hardly get it out. They say, woodcock? And she says, no thanks, I'm a fruitarian.
Yes, I did laugh. I did laugh at that.
um, there's another thing which I noticed. I looked at the script, and this isn't in the script, but it's in the movie. And I'm wondering if it was Julia Roberts' idea or the director's. It's a lovely moment. It's when they break into that park and they find that bench that has the plaque on it, so like from Emily to Robert, who always sat, for Emily and who always sat together or whatever.
Hmm.
And in the script it says they look at it, and the camera rises up to the stars or something like that is what it says in the script. But in the movie, what happens is she looks at it and is so obviously moved, and then she sits down on the bench, and I felt like it was such an actory, not an actory moment, like something, but something that an actor would do, of like, I'm going to try and sit on the bench and conjure for myself, what was the life that these people had that I could never have and I've never experienced. And it was so touching to me that I felt like she's trying to contact that kind of
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was her, because I thought it was a really smart. Any performances that really jumped out at you?
Oh yeah, plenty. I really, I really enjoyed his family, or his friends. They were great. That dinner party was wonderful. I guess I particularly liked. Is it? I liked James Dreyfus, I think his name is, and Richard. No, who was playing? Who was the guy who didn't know who she was for the longest time?
Oh yes, that is. I think that is. Uh, that's Richard McCabe, I believe.
Is that
Tony,
Richard
right?
McCabe? Okay, he was fantastic. All of them. His friend, who was
Or was
there.
that Max? That might be Tim Mackin. No, Max is Bella's husband.
Well, I liked Tim McInerney a lot. I liked Bella. The woman who played Bella was great.
Gina McKee is
She's
fantastic. I've
great.
seen her in so many things.
Rice hyphens. Let's say it's Reese hyphens. Ifans. I don't know who played Spike.
Rishavins.
I mean, he's fantastic. I,
Yeah.
I like this guy a lot. There's another film that the director did called Enduring Love, which is really worth it. It stars Daniel Craig and Rice Ifans and
Rishavins.
Rich Ifans. And it's great. It's really good. It's before Bond, and it's like a really interesting kind of drama thriller. Great movie.
Okay.
He's great in that. I always love him. I you know, I was pleased by the ensemble.
One of my favorite moments in the entire movie is from it's from oh no, I'm forgetting the characters. Martin, James Dreyfus, who plays Martin, the gentleman who works at the bookstore with him.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
When he's left alone with her and he fixes his hair, is just such a great moment. We American actors in smaller parts aren't willing in general to go that far.
No.
And
Not unless you're Stanley Tucci, as we've discussed.
as we've discussed, yes.
I want to give a shout out to somebody who's appeared in a bunch of films in small roles, the comedian and genius Dylan Moran, who plays the guy who's trying to steal the book in his pants.
Oh, he's spectacular.
Love that scene. if you don't know Dylan's stand up, you should check it out
Okay.
because he's one of the funniest guys on the planet. He's great. I loved it. I loved that whole bit. And that was actually like that whole bit of like, you have it down your trousers. And he goes, no, I don't. Like, well, what would you like me to do? He goes, well, I'd like you to either take
Either
it off and put it back on the shelf or buy it. One or
yeah, yeah. Very good writing. There's also an actor who has a very small part. He's at the table of snotty businessmen who are talking about
oh,
her.
we're trash
Who
talking her.
I think it was last week I talked about this actor who I admire so much from one of my cop shows, Sanjeev Bhaskar,
Hmm.
who was on Unforgotten. Now obviously much older than in this movie.
And since retitled Remembered or Misremembered,
Mr. No, it's called Unforgotten,
which is remembered. Let's.
which
I think that season 2 is remembered.
is remembered. Yes. Oh my God. What about I do have to say, a very dear friend of mine, Bo Baker, who is a sound mixer.
Yeah, I
As
know, Bo.
you know, Bo, he's got a huge pet peeve with this movie.
Oh, because you don't give the cans to anybody on the set, just hanging around.
Well, and if you do, they don't. You're the sound mixer. When people are not shooting, you pull
Nah.
the levels down. You know, and I called him this
So it
morning.
wasn't the Bill Withers montage. It was that
It was
that
that
pissed him
bothered him.
off.
Yeah. Because he tells a story apparently, and I don't know if this is true or not, but there's a story about Robert De Niro on a set um, across the street from where the camera was set up at getting a soda or something like that. And he, from across the street, he goes, sound check. And the sound guy gives him a thumbs up. And Robert De Niro went and had the guy fired because he's like, he should not fricking be, I am not on camera. He should be putting the levels down. And
That's brutal.
and
That's a
Bo,
brutal story. That's
yeah,
that's tough, man.
and Bo said we take that crap really, really seriously. When you're mic'd, we
Yeah.
are not listening to you unless you're on camera.
For those of you listening, this is referring to a device that they use at the end of the movie, which is not quite believable, as it turns out. Not completely realistic.
Not completely believable. Yeah. So, what would you have as your double feature with this movie?
I thought a lot about it. My double bill is the movie Scream. No, for real, and not. I'm not being like. I'm actually being serious
Okay, why?
because I believe that they both approach the genre in a similar, knowing way, and they subvert it in interesting ways while delivering an incredibly satisfying genre experience, nonetheless, to the fans. And it's exactly what you think it is, but it's not what you think it is.
Okay. All right. I like that.
I'm disappointed in that. I thought that was. I thought.
No, I do. I like it. I think it's
Okay.
good. I
What's
think
the
it's
double
good.
bill?
Um, well, once again, you have gone for the much subtler, more intelligent, thoughtful
You're
approach
just
to
like,
this thing.
there's another pretty lady in a movie, so that one.
No, what I did was I did Bonnie and Clyde.
So you picked the anti Notting Hill.
The anti Notting Hill.
All
You
right.
would watch like the most wonderful, sappy love story, and then you would watch a love story between people you just really don't want to run into.
I just realized that you have to know that I'm being honest with you because if I didn't like this, that I would have led with "I'm nodding off." So
Oh, wow. Ooh.
it occurred to
Yeah,
me. I
no,
had it ready to go, but I didn't decide to say it.
today went much better than I thought it would go.
Can I say my favorite line?
Yeah, please.
Because I love the line. I love the fact that when he gets and he enters her hotel suite and finds that there's a big publicity junket happening, and he has to pretend to be a reporter. He decides to be a reporter from the Horse and Hound, which
Yes.
is very funny. And then he says to another reporter, "Is like, well, he says, why do you have flowers?" Because he was bringing them for her. And he
right.
tries to cover by saying, "Well, I'm bringing them to my mother who's in the hospital down the way." And the guy goes, "Can I ask you which hospital?" And he's like, "Do you mind my not saying it's a rather distressing disease?" And the name of the hospital sort of gives it away.
Yeah,
That was
I
my one Hugh Grant like moment where I thought he totally hit it out of the
so
park.
well,
Love that.
I have that whole sequence down as one of my favorite sequences in the movie because him valiantly trying to continue the charade, if I may say it that way,
You can say that.
um, of being a reporter with the Horse and Hound and having backed him, and then the joy that she takes in sort of forcing him to continue it every time her manager walks into the room
Yeah.
and he has to continue down that road is and when he says something, "You are Horse and Hound's favorite star, next to Black Beauty." You know, like,
There's some really there's some choice dialogue in it, man. It's,
yeah.
it's got some great funny stuff.
How would you recast this movie?
To be honest, didn't get very far with that vis-a-vis the craziness.
Okay.
But I think I'm gonna really stop and say I would really love to see, honestly, I'd like to see Rice Ifans or Reese Ifans or
Or
Russell
Rishifans.
play the Hugh Grant part, or Dylan Moran, or another English actor who or British or UK actor that had some soul, had some more soul. That's really my big ask in how I would recast it.
Okay.
How about you?
Well, I thought it's hard to think about anybody other than Julia Roberts playing this role because it has to be somebody who carries that iconic weight with them, and there haven't been a lot of movies. You have to think back to Audrey Hepburn or Grace Kelly to think of somebody who's got that kind of I can't think of anybody now who's that.
The thing is, I think they're probably examples, but we're too old to know who they are.
Probably, yeah.
I mean,
So
probably somebody like Aaliyah.
right. So I went the other way and cast it with who you just would like. So I cast it with Casey Affleck and Katherine Heigl.
Wow.
Right?
God.
So, like, an actress who you're saying, "I do not understand why that person is a star." And this person is kind of not very, and the guy is
The
just
guy
not very
might be a serial
likable.
killer. I don't
Yeah.
know if might be.
Yeah. So I thought that would be just a really, like, that would be a train wreck of a love
It would
story.
almost be redesigning it as an erotic thriller.
Yeah.
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 Notting Hill tonight at 11.
Yeah. Naughty Hill.
Naughty Hill.
Naughty Hill. Um, and I also want to give some shout outs to brilliant performance by Matthew Modine, some of his best work in years.
That hat alone was priceless.
Alec Baldwin as Alec Baldwin, wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, I loved, and I'm sure you noticed it, that they managed to do a mashup. This is the first time I've ever seen what I think is a mashup homage and or reference to another movie. And the mashup is they mashed up 2001 and Barbarella into one movie sequence.
They kind of did.
Which I thought was sort of like letting us know very clearly this is the kind of star she is and the kinds of movies she's making now.
Yeah. Could have been a nod to Aliens or Alien as well.
Was that out already? When did those come out? When that was you're looking at me. For those of you enjoying this on the podcast, Anthony is looking at Matthew as if he's a moron.
Alien had been out for 15 years, about 14.
We have to do you have to do those commentary in tennis announcer voice. Matthew is a moron.
Matthew's regrouping after suggesting that Alien was a movie that came out in the 1990s.
But the fact that she has on like a or sort of a Barbarella kind of wig, and but that it's clearly 2001 for
Yes.
I loved that. And then the fact that at the end she's making a who's that writer? Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen. She's making a Jane Austen movie at the end.
Oh, that's right. It's a Jane Austen thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After he spoke to her about that, and he takes that in, it's like, oh, she's getting more serious now.
Mhm.
I had a all right. But other people I actually legitimately want to give shout outs to is the concierge at the Ritz.
Are you imagining who this person is? It says, "Yes, I think I have them firmly in mind."
Yeah. He and then his reaction to being kissed by Rishafins, just wonderful. And the gentleman who insists on looking for books other than travel books in the travel bookstore
He
was
great.
spectacular.
I loved his choice of because I was thinking of how, as an actor, how would you play somebody that dumb?
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not dumb, he's distracted. Like he's just simply not paying attention. I thought that was great.
I thought he was terrific.
Definitely that part would have been one of you or I would have been the visitor to the bookstore.
Okay, that's not who I had you as and me as. I thought you would be the chef, the friend.
I was just going to say that. The chef who's introduced in the opening narration and has no role really.
No role except for a scene like when his restaurant is closing.
Yeah. Yeah. We missed the whole restaurant part of it.
And then I thought I might be the concierge.
I would buy that.
What do you know that approximately 90 minutes were cut out of this movie? I think you would have liked it much more, because I think the material in that 90 minutes might have addressed some of the criticisms.
Perhaps they would have thrown in a couple of ABBA songs or something too to really, round it out.
Okay.
Did you go and get the soundtrack album on CD?
On this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a great soundtrack.
It is. That's my jam. Well, I think we've covered everything that I'm just glad that I got out of this without I'm not bleeding.
Hey, look, it's a charming movie. It's a nice light souffle, a trifling little bauble of a movie, made by some talented people, and trying to elevate the genre, I think, with some interesting Shakespearean themes, and some discussions about fate and the gods and philosophy, and that I was down with that. I like that.
Oh, okay. Good. God, I feel somewhat vindicated.
You did not ruin my month yet. You're gonna get there.
I think I'll get there at the end. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So next week, please join us for How to Steal a Million with the incredible Audrey Hepburn and the fantastic Peter O'Toole.
Can't wait. It's going to be a good one.
See you next week.